This week, someone dies. I didn't see you there.
It all started early this morning.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids, true crime, paranormal, and more.
I've always wanted to see a UFO.
Oh, I was researching for your entertainment.
That's Bigfoot's scat.
He basically wrote the book on Monroe. We aren't really comedians. What if Buddha did cocaine? The Addams Family on meth. This is the Black Hat Report.
See you on the other side. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 122, Ronald True, Part 3, the end of the Trulogy. My name is Gil, and joining me here today is Joey Lee's doppelganger, Joey Lee. Go. Joey.
Hello. I am here. This is me,
Did that make
Joey
you
Lee.
Joey D? That make you
That
Joey
would
D,
make
Joey
me-
Doppelganger.
That would make
Yeah.
me Joey Doppelganger, but I am the original Joey Lee.
Sounds like something a doppelganger say. Well, our primary source for part 3 will be The Trial of Ronald True by Donald Carswell, which has been our primary source for this whole series, which you can find a link to, along with any other secondary sources that we mention, down in the show notes. Now, Joey,
Mhm.
when we last left off,
Mhm.
Ronald True had spent a week straight threatening, harassing, and pretty much holding Mrs. Wilson hostage before one day he didn't show up to kidnap her like he'd usually do. In fact, he had gone to meet up with his wife, where, after telling her they were getting a divorce, he waved a gun around before running off into the streets of London. Am I leaving anything out?
I mean, he was kind of going crazy there for a little bit. I think you're leaving a whole good bit of him going crazy, but it was a good overview. To get us back in that mood,
Yeah.
get us back in that physicality of him.
Get
right
us
now. So, yes.
truly feeling it, you know?
Yep.
I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, a point is, y'all, so much base gets set up in part 1 of just honest to God background of why shit is even possible later. And then in part 2, shit really gets fucking rolling. and
Mhm.
and so please head back over to at least part 2 before listening to part 3, or else a lot of shit won't make sense. I didn't even bother to address it. So with
Yep.
all that out of the way, let's hop right in.
Yes.
Joey, I can see you typing.
I'm not even typing right now. My hands are right here. My hands are where you can't see them. Do I do with my hands?
I'm gonna get a
What do I
second
do?
webcam.
Yeah, it's just gonna be point to my hands. What are you doing? Here, I can just hold them like this the whole episode. That way, it's like you're holding me
Ron
hostage
Burgundy.
here.
Or
You're
fucking
holding me hostage here. What do I do?
I
with
need
my
I
hands?
need that witty banter. No, I'm just being a dick.
I'm
Love
here.
you.
I'm here.
All right.
I'm here with this banter.
At 11 o'clock on the same evening, Ronald ran away from his wife. Mrs. Wilson's phone rang. It was Ronald True, and through frantic cries and screams, he told her the most horrible thing imaginable had happened. You see, just hours earlier, after going to his family home and failing to be let in by anyone after knocking at the door, he had made his way around the back, where he proceeded to crawl in through the window, only to find the house empty of their servants before soon discovering his own mother, the Baroness, motionless, blood everywhere, with her head bashed in, lying on
No.
the floor. She was barely clinging to life and had to be rushed to a medical facility for extensive operations, though the likelihood of her recovery was slim. Shocked by this news, Mrs. Wilson scanned the papers frantically the following day, but to her surprise, no matter how hard she looked, there wasn't so much as even a faint mention. Not a single paragraph was dedicated in any of the newspapers to a baroness who had been violently bludgeoned to death. Who had been violently bludgeoned to death's door in her own home. Running into True that evening, Mrs. Wilson broached the subject immediately, to which True replied, quote, I'm keeping it quiet for the time being. There's going to be a big case about it. But something felt off about all of this. How in the world could such a horrific incident of someone with so much status, so high up in society, be completely kept quiet? So, being a well known socialite herself, Mrs. Wilson quickly started pulling all the strings of her extensive network around the city, making inquiries to her friends and officials in and around London. It was bullshit. Ronald True's mother had not been attacked, was not in the hospital, and was safely living at home in her massive estate.
Yeah. That's just completely misleading. That had me going there for a second. He had me going there. I was just like, no, not her. Anything but her. And I also just imagine Mrs. Wilson coming in and just being like, just her face painted red like the volleyball. Wilson!
Wilson!
Hi, Mr. True. That's what I
Hi,
just
Mr.
imagine
True.
Mr. Wilson to sound like.
I mean, Ronald True pretty much went as crazy. Yeah, that's kind of fit.
Exactly. Mhm.
Well, and keep in mind too, I intentionally will try to fuck y'all up during these episodes because we're following the life path of somebody who's going insane.
Mm-hmm. You had
So
me. You
yeah,
had me there.
keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Twists and turns, and oh my god, where'd that come from, right?
Mhm.
Well, spurred on by True's clear display of insanity that's now become mixed in with graphic fantasies of violence towards his own mother, Mrs. Wilson was finally confident in making a decision to reach out and warn others. Now, that may sound like a sad pause or sloth on her part, but please keep in mind she was a woman in the 1920s, stuck in a vacuum of isolated threats by one man, and was left alone trying to navigate the misogyny of a literally shell-shocked society ran by World War I veterans who all thought it was okay that a known crazy person like True was carrying a gun and all constantly saw him say, or sorry, and constantly, quote, joking about killing someone. So, yes, she was harassed
Mhm.
for a week. Yes, it was very intense. Yes, it was very fucked up. All this other stuff. But but to be honest, like it had never been an issue of people, namely men, not believing her before. Sorry. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah. It had never been an issue of people, namely men, not believing her before. They all knew and saw what was happening and they were okay with it. They
Mhm.
saw the jokes. They saw Ronald True's gun. They all unanimously agreed he's fucking crazy. But they all
Yep.
had the same conclusion. He's harmless.
He's
And this is
fine.
all dipped in a world of very intense misogyny. So like
Mhm.
you know,
Oh.
it had to go this far. But here's the thing. With this, right? A deranged story of a baroness being potentially threatened,
Mhm.
Mrs. Wilson finally had enough social ammo of her own to make a move and sound the alarm about the very real and present danger of Major Ronald True. It
Mhm.
took this.
Yeah. And to add to that point is like he's also a major, so like that brings, as well as him being crazy, people, like I said, I
Yeah.
think I said it last episode too, it's like people are just like, well, he's a major, he's seen some shit, yeah, we've
Yeah.
us also have seen some shit, but he's just out there, and them not even knowing what shell shock was. I said the same
Yeah.
thing, not really knowing what shell shock was. They're just kind of like, Oh, he's just got the yips, you know. He's just like,
Yeah.
oh, he's just crazy a little bit, but he's not great. He's fine. He's fine. Don't worry about it. He's
The
a
night
major. He's good.
tremors.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. He's crashed many planes. He's a hero.
You know how many planes he's flown?
Mm-hmm.
The exact amount that he's crashed.
He's crashed. Yeah.
No, you were spot on. But you know, that's why I kind of like I made the long rant in part 2 where I was just like, look, she's not crazy for doing what she did and for holding off, and
Yep.
really have to view this. I mean, it's still difficult for women today to communicate outside of abusive relationships. How the
Mm-hmm.
fuck do you think it was over 100 years ago?
Yep.
Right? When everybody had shell shock, PTSD, was fucked in the head, was, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a few
Yeah.
years after the end of World War One. Not a good time, you know?
She's the least crazy in this story right now. So
100%. Well,
yeah.
and this is funny though. I think this is funny.
Mm.
Actually, I think this is fucking fantastic. I've been so excited since before I ever wrote a single word for this series. I've been so excited to reveal this. See, this is where the story takes somewhat of an odd turn, a little bit of a fun twist. You
This
see,
is where
Mrs. Wilson delivered her first set of warnings to the members and staff of Murray's, the private social dance club where she had originally met Ronald True, and had subsequently suffered a very long week of forced monologues and threats after becoming the obsession of this madman who every night would tell her never-ending stories about an evil, dangerous man named Ronald True, spelled with a W. He was a malicious lunatic and fraud who had for years been forging checks and placing bad bets in his name, all while ruining Major True's spotless reputation. He told her how he'd been hunting down this other Ronald True and tracked him to London's West End, where, after discussing the situation with the police, he had received explicit permission from Scotland Yard to finally kill his evil doppelganger. To say that this news came as a shock to the staff of the club would be an understatement. Not because True was insane, everyone already knew that, but because Ronald True, with a W, was in fact a real member of Murray's.
No way. No way. How is this delusion that he's created like manifest itself into truth?
This whole time, all these fuck ups, scandals, forged checks, failed jobs, pharmacist and doctor beatdowns, rumors and reputation ruining rodeos that Major True had been white knuckle riding into success over the past few years might have been very real issues for the other Ronald True.
All the checks.
There was another guy who was having to deal with all of Ronald True's bullshit.
Wait,
Major
which guy is
Ronald
dealing
True.
with it? Which one is dealing with it?
Major Ronald True, the man whose story we've been following this whole fucking time, is literally the story of someone's evil doppelganger.
He's the side character. Oh my god.
No, he is the evil doppelganger who's been lurking and fucking up somebody's life.
So he's ruining this dude's life. That's actually the good person. You couldn't make this
I've been
better
holding
movie.
this in for weeks.
Yeah, you can't make that a better movie. Like, just this whole story of him going through life and looking in the mirror, being like, him saying, somebody is fucking up my life as the bad guy, like basically ruining a Ronald True's life, then saying, somebody's fucking up my life, and then the other guy who's like the Ronald Trew, the good Ronald True, the good doppelganger's like,
This is
man,
some
looking in the
Sixth
mirror like,
Sense
yeah,
Bruce Willis shit of like, I see dead people, but Bruce Willis was actually dead. Spoiler, after 30 fucking years. You should have seen it by now.
yeah.
But like,
How?
this is
This
some
is
M. Night Shyamalan shit.
yeah, in real life. This is what inspired him, I feel like. This is terrible. You're thinking that this guy is the real Ronald True. I mean, he is, I guess, technically named, but his name's Angus, so Angus Ronald True. So I always remember that because it's just Angus Young from AC/DC. Anyways, we'll move past it. But he's fucking up this dude's life. That's like the real Ronald True that lived in this, and that he tracked him down, and that he tracked this guy down to the club, probably without even fucking knowing it.
It's funny that you would say that. You always got that one step ahead now.
Mm-hmm.
No, but for real. Now, I am sure that there's other true stories of doppelgangers, and I would love to do a series about them sometime. Joey, I'm even gonna put it up as a second option for this year's theme month because, bro, this shit right
Doppelgangers?
here is so good. But
Maybe.
holy shit. I have never read a story with so many twists and turns where the true crime, madman protagonist turns out to literally be the evil doppelganger all along.
Mm-hmm.
His insanity was accurate but flipped on its head, which is,
Yeah.
again, in the story of Ronald True, who can just crash planes and get up and keep walking, who can just fucking survive 400 times the amount that a normal person would overdose on morphine on a daily fucking
Mm-hmm.
basis, who's like only ever fallen upward, even in his descent into insanity. The real world is working for him. This
Yeah.
is like, holy shit. But now, a perfect example of this, which y'all already had some breadcrumbs. I left some Easter eggs in the last episode to prepare you for this. A perfect example of this. Do you remember how in the last episode I mentioned that Mrs. Wilson went back to Murray's the night after she was first harassed by Major True? She had thought, because it was an exclusive private club and because she knew from talking with him or being talked at by him that he had just been there as a guest. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, that's why she went back to the place where she was like barely made it out of a very unsafe situation of more or less being held at gunpoint all fucking night. She thought it was
Mm-hmm.
private. She thought that this was a lot safer than being home alone because it's a private club. He was just there as an evening guest. Well, the reason she immediately ran into Major True again was because this arrogant and entitled motherfucker confidently told the bouncer his name was Ronald True, which was the
Oh.
truth. And the bouncer, much like the bookies and the staff at the psych wards and rehabs, couldn't hear the difference between Ronald True and Ronald Twew with a W. So they
Yeah.
were marking him down as Ronald True with a W when he went in. And he was so entitled that he's like, yes, it's me. It's Ronald True. You don't need to sign me in, but you can if it's formal. And like just fucking walked in. He didn't even think about getting a membership or anything. He just felt entitled to the fucking world. And again, the world just delivered it to him with the most insane coincidence possible.
He
These are
did
not common last names. Like, I
he
really need
did
to point
his
that.
he did his best version of walk in like your parents own the place. Literally
Yes.
as his
Yeah,
Instagram influencer parents, as he
100%. This is the
God.
I dropped. If you listen to part 2, I and go after listening to this. If you listen to part 2, if you missed anything, honestly, I spent a lot of time editing the audio and trying to do some fun shit. So give a couple extra pushes for those analytics.
Mhm.
But but I dropped in so many Easter eggs where I was just edging everybody towards the fact that there was another real Ronald True out there.
Mhm.
I intentionally was trying to fuck with y'all. Well, because that's what we do to our listeners. We love y'all.
Mhm. Yep.
That's how we show love. You know what I'm saying? It's like teasing, right? Something
Yep.
like that. Who has a healthy relationship?
Yeah. And we all love you. So we want you guys to be just as surprised as I am because, to be fair, first time I'm hearing this. Gil tells me stuff behind the scenes, but I intentionally sometimes am like, no. Give me some surprises for the show. And then I do the same for him. We try to surprise each other with twists and turns because it makes it fun. So I'm learning
It's
just like you
true.
guys are.
It's Ronald True. And
Stay
here's the
hydrated.
deal. These dark fantasies and delusions of a man named Ronald True with a W lurking around every corner were real because
Mhm.
literally sitting around the corner from Major True and Mrs. Wilson was a very confused Ronald True with a W looking at random bills and bar tabs.
Imagine if he was freaking sitting around the corner while they were talking about him, and Ronald True's like, "I'm gonna kill that guy, that other Ronald True," and he's just like, "Wait,
Wait,
Ronald True, Trew. That's
I
no
think I heard a R RUE. I think that was an
Oh, okay,
RUE.
I'm good. Yeah. No big
Well,
deal.
this dance and entertainment club was so fucking loud that Mrs. Wilson was basically able to be awkwardly fucking. Think about a modern day nightclub,
Yep, it's so
right?
loud. Yep.
Um, with live bands, dancers, all this shit going on, and very private booths off to the side that are even less lit than current modern day booths at a dance club, like off to the
Can you
side. But
imagine
yeah,
her being like him saying some of those things and her being like, "What? What?" And then him being like
yeah.
repeating it. "No, this is my gun. I got it from Scotland. They said it was okay at Scotland Yard. That's your what?"
What?
It just like keeps going. God, that would be terrible, terrifying. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
And I really do imagine in a booth right behind them, not able to hear from all the music and shit,
yeah,
was the actual Ronald True. Like, I didn't order 6 martinis, just like looking
yeah.
at the bill.
Wait a second.
Well,
Like they keep bringing the drinks to the wrong table, and it gets like one of those things. Like I didn't want a.
all of it was
I
being
wanted a.
sent to this other dude's tab.
Yeah. True. Oh
Younger
yeah,
tab.
true. So he's never paying anything he's I guess he doesn't have any money at this time, right?
He's also fucking crazy, so he's just not paying attention to shit. Slash,
Yeah, it
even if
doesn't
he
matter.
did notice, he just thinks he's fucking entitled. Well,
Yep.
on the night of February 18th, while all these dots were being connected by the people over at Murray's, the afternoon leisure between two friends, Doris Dent and Olive Young, was interrupted by a sudden knock at Olive's door. Though unexpected and late in the evening, a random visitor appearing while Doris was hanging out with Olive wasn't exactly odd or out of place because Olive Young, whose real name was Gertrude Yates, was in fact a high end escort. She was a sex worker and an incredibly successful one. Within just a few years of taking on the profession, Olive, as she had become known to her clients, rose from just barely scraping by to being able to afford her own very large basement level apartment, which was meticulously maintained by the daily services of a maid she hired, Emily Steele. So,
These are
dude,
cool
like
names.
she's doing
These are cool
good. And
names.
this is
Yeah.
in the hip part of London. She has her own fucking like
Mm-hmm.
pad, full on multi rooms. That we're not
Yeah.
talking studio apartment here. Talking about
Yeah.
like a really nice spot. Um, I did the math because in the court records they mentioned how much money that she had in the bank. She had like 8,700 something like that by today's
Mm-hmm.
after inflation and stuff, by like today's money. She had like 8,000 something 700 something dollars in the bank. She always had cash on her. She could afford a maid to come for like 12 hours a day every
Oh yeah.
single day out of the week.
Yeah.
She was
That's
doing
a
good.
lot. That's
Right.
a lot in London too.
Yes. It's like she's doing fine.
I do think it's funny that the maid's name is Emily Steele, and she goes into your house, and you're just like, I'm gonna hide all my valuables.
Wait, how's that spelled? It's actually spelled Steele.
Perfect.
Which autocorrect just kept saying I was doing it wrong, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I got the
Well, she
book.
probably worked
You
in a
don't even have the
factory.
book.
Kind of fit, I guess. A steel factory. Where they just steal stuff from the factory.
In other words, Olive was in very high demand and was very, very well off, which leaves little to the imagination as to how she'd become acquainted recently with one Mr. Major Ronald True, the man now standing in her parlor, whom she was introducing to her friend Doris. She's high-end, very in demand, very popular amongst all the social circles. Ronald True had been bouncing around between all these social circles, moving up through the statuses and meeting all of the people. It's only a matter of time before they would have crossed paths, especially going out and partying every night, right?
Yep. He's still married at this point, right? They're just like separated.
In his mind, they're separated. You know,
Gotcha.
he did. This is a little while. This is like literally just a couple days after
They had that big
he
fight.
was like, "Oh, I can't be with you anymore. We're not together," and then just ran off into the city with a gun. Yeah. Although this is not the point where I'm going to start trying to apply morals to Ronald True, but
or any sense to his life, any sense
just
to timing in his life. Yeah.
Well, not wanting to get in the way of business, Doris excused herself and headed home, while Ronald and Olive spent some quality time together, the details of which Doris would soon hear all about on the following evening. As the two women talked, Olive told Doris how and why she never wanted to see Major True again. Along with not feeling safe being alone with him, partially due to the revolver he insisted on showing her, he had also taken a little too much interest in Olive's jewelry before leaving her house at about the same time that a £5 note mysteriously disappeared from her purse, the equivalent of $363 in today's money.
Wow.
That's
a
a
ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Olive's doing good, but
oh yeah.
But yeah, so at the exact same time, it's just like, where'd my fucking money go?
Yeah.
Anyways,
he keeps saying what she's like, what's your name? Olive. He's like, no, I don't love you. Like, I love you. And I'm making the joke. Terrible joke. Boom. Gotta get my crickets going. All good.
But there's one thing we know about Ronald True. It's that he's fucking persistent. Over the next week, Olive was left constantly on guard against True's never-ending attempts to contact her, along with hiding from and ignoring him when he frequently knocked at her door. Eventually, he began calling her house incessantly. Now, here's the thing, and I had to include this. Began calling her house incessantly. When she started hanging up, the second she heard his voice, he tried on at least one occasion a new tactic. Ring, ring. Hello? Yes, is Olive there? Is this Ronald True? Ronald? Ha! Ha ha! No, to mistake me for such a handsome and debonair man as that. No, this is Armstrong. Yeah, just a regular, below average, gunless guy who's not a famous war hero with devilishly good looks and undeniable charm. God damn it, Ronald. Stay wet, Hello? Oh shit, she hung up on me. So on at least
did,
one occasion,
yeah.
he pretended to be Armstrong.
Oh, Armstrong.
I just picture Armstrong there the whole time, just still not paying attention to goddamn anything.
Just sitting next to him being like, what'd you say? Oh, don't worry about it, Armstrong, just look away. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, I'll just stand here and hang out.
Earmuffs, Armstrong.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right, now here we go.
Now, if you recall from the last episode, I mentioned that Ronald was staying at the finest hotels and hostels in the West End of London. And while this didn't necessarily change during his stalking and harassment of Olive, I stumbled across an interesting little footnote about one specific place he frequented. Frequented? Why can't I say the word? Frequented?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Stumbled across an interesting little footnote about one specific place he loved to haunt.
That works.
Now, I gotta be transparent here. What I'm gonna say next has almost nothing to do with the story, other than adding maybe slightly a little bit more depth to Ronald's character. You see, along with these swanky hotels, the court records specifically point out that True was sometimes staying at a place called the Savoy Turkish Baths in Jermyn Street. This constant name drop caught my eye, and I had to dig in. And Joey, let me tell you, when I went down that rabbit hole to find the best answer for my question, I knew I had to share what I found, not for the answer, and not even for the history, but for the goddamn article title. Quote. It was only in the 1970s that the New London Spy, a rather self-conscious, trendy guidebook for London, published first in the late 60s, wrote about the Savoy in Jermyn Street. Sauna and Turkish baths are regularly raided and or change management. Check daily. Such raids were the death knell of the famous gay baths, which Bryant summarily describes thus. To all intents and purposes, these were sex clubs. For him also to cite a painting, Wood's Exercises, whose artist died in 1930 and who painted the painting in 1925, shows the longevity of the clubs and the tolerance, or more, that the ruling classes of men had for them. End quote. Now, that excerpt is taken, of course, from an article titled Reflecting on the Gay Bathhouse, not let it be noted that I have ever been to one. A note on the Savoy Baths, 97 Jermyn Street, London, and the compatibility of artistic mimesis with surreal invention in Christopher Wood's art. End quote. Which can be found at livesteven.com.
Okay.
I'm not shitting you. The title of this article is
That's
Reflecting on the Gay Bathhouse, and then in brackets, not dash, let it be noted, exclamation point dash, that I have ever been to one, end bracket, a note.
That's the.
I've never been to one of these.
But I've never been there. I've never been there. Just to remind you, that's the.
Not
that's
let
the.
it be noted.
That's a subtle way, a funny way to be just like, no, a friend told me. You know, a friend told me what's going on in this club. But what is
this article?
It was the 20s, right? Was that in the 20s?
No,
the article?
No. This article was published in I think it was 2020 or 2015 or some shit. This is in the 2000s.
Recent.
And he was still writing
But don't worry, I haven't been to one. No.
But I have not been to one. Let it be noted. Who in the middle of a title for an article just gets all like meta and they're like, hold on, but don't think anything about me. Like,
well, Gil, I really think he was trying to catch.
That was the like the fucking academic equivalent of being like, no homo, bro. Like that's basically what
it literally was.
went.
Gil, he was trying to catch the SEO of people going, I've never been to a bathhouse. I've never been
How
to
to
a
tell your
Turkish
wife.
bathhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn, that's
I have
2020.
no clue,
That's crazy.
bro. But this article title, like
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's
The actual
ridiculous.
fun fact I could have. I just.
Yeah. No,
I was like, this is
that need to go in here. Yeah.
I have to share this.
So Ronald True is definitely was going to. Okay, I won't.
No. Real quick. I do want to point out though, because that was a lot of hits. But jokes aside, it's an incredibly well written, well researched, and very well cited blog post, which is why I used it, and the link will be in the show notes. Just goddamn that title. If you actually want to learn about like queer or gay history and like politics and the shit going, dude, it's really fucking good. I was like, holy shit, this is boom, this is laying everything out. And that's just because I looked up that bathhouse. Now,
yeah,
I'm going to get to your point in just a second here, Jay.
Yep.
But to bring it back, not that the truth matters more than the assumptions we all had unchecked, which was probably to default Ronald True to being straight in our heads this whole fucking time. This note in court records is a very strong hint that they all knew Ronald True was at the very least bisexual, and that dog whistle, when they name dropped this bathhouse, has fallen on deaf ears over the past 100 years as its cultural notoriety met the hospice care of time. So, why did I say all this? Well, to harken back to part 1 and 2 of this series, Ronald True's court case changed British law regarding insanity. And I think everyone knowing at the time that he was bi, without openly saying it, of course, was in fact part of the reason they okayed such a big shift in their legal system. This was a fucked up bias that they were showing in their notes. It was literally part of the argument made in court we can look back at now and laugh at for being so fucking stupid of a reason, much the same way that the sanity of trans folks will win the opinion of common sense in time. In short, there is so much evidence for Ronald True's insanity, but they still felt the need to tie his sexuality into their arguments as constant bullet points. Meaning, this case also plays a role in the history of persecuting and criminalizing people for their gender and sexuality. This is a big deal because they thought for so long that it's like, oh, they're literally anything but straight. That's a mental illness.
Yep.
So this is also and then it builds up. Right from there, because I was like, why like they just mentioned fancy hotels, this and that and the other, and they're like the Savoy bathhouse, and they just kept saying it. And I was like, why the fuck do you specifically keep pointing that out? Like I know what a bathhouse is, and I was like, oh, so thanks to thanks to that incredible article, I at least to me a lot of dots got connected.
Honestly,
thanks to livesteven.com.
That sounds like Ronald True's other self, but I've never been to one.
I've never been to one.
Yeah, his other self writing that.
It's a fascinating article. I should put the website's no longer secure to go to, but I did download it into archive.org because I was like, I love research, and I looked at it. I'm like, this is fucking incredibly well researched. Like, this is a good piece of history, and the website itself is dying. So Shout out archive.org. But yeah,
Yep.
the link to that, if you are interested in like the intricacies of politics of queer oppression and like history and shit like that, you should check it out. It's kind of fascinating. A lot of stuff about woodcuts, which I don't have ready right now. I was gonna show you, Joey, these woodcuts of what it looked like inside of there. It's just like a gay circus trampoline of men swinging around and their manly shafts swinging around, and it was yeah.
Was
It
that
was.
so?
It
Let me
looked like
ask
an
those.
orgy. It looked like a all male orgy in the
So
bathhouse. That was the woodcut carving he was referring to in
okay,
this, and that was done in 1925, 3 years after Ronald True was staying there. Like, it was,
so
you know,
let me ask that question though.
yeah.
Do you think that woodcut carving was actually true to form, or was it more like that was like what people thought? What you know what I mean? Like what people outside looking in
No.
thought. That was what it was.
Well, I mean, the author admits he's never been to a bathhouse, so I don't know how much we can trust him.
With a incredibly well researched thing, but no, I've never been there.
Not
Which
that I've
is good.
ever been.
Yeah.
I will
But
admit, maybe
that
that
was
was
my
his
question.
sense of humor.
Yeah.
No, it was notorious, and that's why in the articles
Okay.
that they mention that this is really fascinating history. I'm sorry, I'm going on a fucking tangent about it. I don't care. I just came across this. I was like, holy shit, this is wild, and it adds depth. But the fact that in the 60s, where they were quoting the London guidebook where it said sauna and Turkish baths are regularly rated and or change management check daily. That was a subtle way of saying that they kept getting shut down and had to come under new management because they were actually just gay sex houses. That's it. And it was just where dudes would come together to have gay sex because there were anti-sodomy laws. So
Yep.
police would come in and raid, arrest the owner, a new owner would pop up, police would come in and raid, arrest the owner. That's what that fancy language translates to. So
Yeah.
long history of that. And that article that I keep, quoting from with the best title in the world is talking about how there's a quote tolerance between homosexuality and the upper classes, how this was like a weird middle ground where you had elites such as Major Ronald True and common folks coming together and expressing something that they're getting a lot of trouble for if people found out about.
Yeah.
It was
You
a
lose your
hush
status,
hush.
you go to jail. Yep.
Yeah, but even at the same time, the politicians had to be like, "Oh, but I'm against it." But I'll see you there at 8.
Yeah. But
It
I've never
was a good
been.
article. Not
But
that
I've
I've
never
ever
been.
been. Let it be noted.
I still think that's the funniest. You're right. That is the funniest thing that's part of the title.
Bro, you need to see the actual spelling of it too. It's just like, God damn.
It's
like
all
40 exclamation
capitals.
points. Pretty much.
Literally.
Yeah.
Back to the
But yeah.
story.
Yeah. Where was I? Culture. Yeah. So that all aside, we're gonna skip through the week of harassment of Olive Young to the 29th of February. Spoiler, she dodged him successfully for a week. Now
That's good.
about 7.5, or we're about a week and a half later, almost 10-ish days later, 29th of February. Well, after spending the night at a fancy hotel and indulging in the complimentary breast fist, the complimentary balls fest, breast fest and balls fest.
I'd like to find this breast fest.
We're live streaming right now.
I know.
Well, after spending the night at a fancy hotel and indulging in a complimentary breakfast, True, who by this point was completely running out of money, slipped out the front door of one hotel directly into the lobby of another hotel across the street, where he quickly convinced the receptionist he was a quote cross-channel pilot who had just arrived from Paris, end quote. Well, after booking a
good at that.
room there for a few nights, he then borrowed their phone and called up a nearby chauffeur service and convince them to let him pay later, as he, quote, just arrived from Paris via aeroplane and had nothing but French money, end quote. Which honestly is a damn good travel tip if you're ever trying to con or swindle a Brit. Just tell them all you have is French money and they will give you whatever you want. They'll be like, I just,
that's not
please,
real
just,
money.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
need
not
my
real money.
wallet smelling like cheese. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
need that.
They don't need that. They don't believe that's real money. They're just like, well, you'll figure it out. It's fine. But like the again, like this guy with confidence
Unstoppable.
just strides in, and they're just like, oh, okay, oh, cool. Oh, you've been to France, you know, with a lot of people back in this day, like traveling outside the country, especially just coming out of a world war, was not a thing. You know, like going to the United States was not a thing. Like most people did not travel because
multi-month long trips.
Yep. So it's amazing to. That's why I think sometimes, and what we talked about earlier, is why his stories get so much. People listen so much, or like kind of not step aside, but kind of allow him to do things like not pay for stuff because they're like, oh, it's fine. Nowadays, they're just like, no, you went to Florida, great, cool, great. That sucks for you, but you know, they're just like, oh, you can't pay later. Like, I need my money now. Oh, you have Cash App, you have Venmo, just pay me now. You know, it doesn't work now. But back then, there's like, oh, he's got some status. Plus, him being like a baron, the son of a baroness, you know, and
Major baron.
Major baron. Like, what's below a baron? I don't know. A Karen.
Baron's pretty.
A
Karen.
But
Karen
like,
baron.
yeah. But like, he's just a step below that. So if he throws those words around, people are like, oh, he's like a Lannister. He's gonna pay his debts. Like they can get get the money back from somewhere. So allowing him to do that, they'll just write it down. Okay, I took him today. I'm gonna get tipped probably really well, like extra too. Like they're gonna throw money into me.
Trust me, tipped. Haha, they'll take care of the whole shaft if you deal with me. Now, don't even worry.
Yeah. Tip, that's my brother. You know.
Yeah. But like, I know this great bathhouse. Let me give you the directions. Like,
yeah, but yeah, it's easy for him, you know.
Yeah,
to get away with this.
Yeah. It's true. It's at one of those, you know, major transitional periods, and there's as always with Ronald True, the situation just
bends to him.
I honestly don't believe he plays well to the situation. I believe the situation just plays well to him, because the fact of the matter is, every time the situation lasts more than a couple days, it goes terribly wrong for him. Yeah, like every time
it crashes.
It quite literally crashes. So it's not that, it's just the time and the place, man. Goddamn, if anybody's ever been more talented at showing up in the right time, in the right place, it's this motherfucker who showed up while hallucinating a doppelganger in the place where his literal doppelganger was.
Exactly. Like, yeah, that's the just hardest to.
God damn. Well. Yeah. Well, by that evening, a young chauffeur, Luigi Mazzola, arrived at the hotel to pick up Ronald, who wasted no time in directing Luigi over to Armstrong's mom's house. The two men had a very important dinner plans. The two men had very important dinner plans later that night with an old war buddy, Mr. Sosh, and his wife, whom True had run into the day before. Remembering, quote, True as an odd fish, end quote, from his time sharing a cabin with him in the U.S., Mr. Sosh was among the many men who knew True as crazy, but excused him as harmless. Which, I gotta point out here, was not at all the vibe that Mrs. Sosh, or more immediately to the story, Armstrong's mom, would glean from True. In fact, before Armstrong was allowed to leave home that night, he's a 30-something-year-old man, he was awkwardly scolded and warned by his mother that he shouldn't be hanging out with Major True. That something was incredibly wrong with that man, that he was a bad influence, and that she didn't like him being around. Meanwhile, in the background, while this conversation was still happening, True was peeping through her things before ultimately stealing a check from her purse.
So, I mean, mothers, first
Ah,
off,
yeah, I mean, always, always.
intuition on
Yeah.
Friends. Let
Also,
us not
every
forget.
woman, but yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
every well, that's the funny thing too. You mentioned it is like every
Yeah.
woman in this story is like, this guy is not harmless. This guy, everyone needs to stay away from him. The
Every
guys are just
woman
like,
was like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
yeah, and every guy is like, nah, he's crazy, but he's harmless, right? Yeah, it's fine. Uh, and that speaks to the misogyny of the society at that time too. It's just the biggest thing. But let us
100%.
not forget that he has a problem with stealing things, because when last episode we talked about it, he was stealing little things, but now he started
Yeah.
to go bigger and bigger
This is
and bigger.
intentional.
Yep.
Yeah, this is very intentional. This is after kind of after literally cutting off all contact with his family, how the hell was his mom gonna send him his allowance?
Mm-hmm.
He
Yep.
only left home. I mean, he must have left home with a sizable amount of money, but he only
Mm.
left home with a certain amount of money. His mom was still sending him allowance, but then he dipped out of everything. It's
Yep.
been a couple weeks.
He
He's
need
getting
money.
low on cash and he's got that
Mhm.
influencer lifestyle to live, right?
Yes, he
Well,
does.
I do like to picture this situation where it's, awkward, like Ronald True's and kind of the foyer, you know what I'm saying? Like he's in like the entrance area to the house and like he can just hear Armstrong's mom being like, I told you to stop hanging with him. Mom, I don't care. No, I told you he's a bad influence. And the whole time he's like, Lou,
Mm-hmm.
Lou, 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 just like,
Reaching in.
what's in here? Just
Yoink.
digging. Who's like, ooh, panty drawer. And just like, bless you, baby. That was Dada sneezing. You all right, Papa?
Mhm.
Um, Confused about life. Anyways,
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, he was just like kind of just being like Lou, 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 Lou. Oh, they're talking about me, of course. Lou, 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 and then just um Armstrong and his mom pop out of the room. Armstrong just being like, ugh, and his mom being like, just fucking red in the
Yeah.
face. Just be, Armstrong, you deleterious salt shaker of a man, you. How on earth have you been hiding your beautiful younger sister from me this whole damn time? That's my mom. Wait, don't tell me. Is that Mama Strong? As he's just like hiding the check behind his back, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Fuck off, Ronald." He's like, huh, "With pleasure." RTL. See you later, baby. And just
Mm.
fucking just leaves.
Stay hydrated.
I
Yep.
know that's exactly what happened.
Oh, for sure. He's just trying to win her over, and then she's like, "Get out of here." That friend that
He's that douchebag.
everybody hates. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
he
yeah.
is that
And
douche.
poor Armstrong. And poor Armstrong just goes along with whatever, and he's just like, he's not oblivious, obviously, because he knows what's going on. But you're right. The idea of him of of him putting on earmuffs when this happens, just be like, Armstrong, put on your earmuffs. Your little passing comment there is so true, because he's just like, all right, I'll guess so. This is what I imagine him saying, like, all right, Ronald, or what are we doing today, Ronald? Yeah, okay, we're gonna go steal money. You've been calling
Okay.
this girl for a week. Well, I wonder why she's not answering, but I guess
Do you
I guess
want
I'll
me to
put on my
call?
earmuffs. I'll call.
You just want to pretend to be me and call? That's cool. Hey, from now on, instead of me saying whatever, can you just say whatever? Cool.
Yeah,
this-
I'm just too
but
tired.
dude, the it's about to get even worse with Armstrong and his just unstoppable ability to
What
not
a
absorb
talent.
things. Just
What a talent.
goddamn. Again, the perfect sidekick. Because this
Mhm.
whole time, he's the only male who is close enough to Ronald True to actually be able to force society and legislative and administrative hands and whatever to do something about what
Mhm.
is coming up. He's the only one. He's spending like 20 hours a day with him. He's the only
Yeah.
one that people would listen to is another man. Because clearly, literally nobody is listening to any woman in this situation. And the one dude who's right there with him is just like, I didn't even hear him say that. The what now? I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with selling him a gun. I mean, sure, he didn't wear a hat, but like, I don't always wear a hat when I shower. I know that's weird, but sometimes I take it off. You know, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
he's the only one, which is why I have so much hatred towards him.
Yeah.
He is an enabler.
He is completely an enabler. But what's weird is Ronald True actually wears a hat when he showers, not when he's not showering. So it's like it's the
Obviously, I
weird
can't get my hair
opposite.
wet.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't get my
Yeah.
hair wet. That's how they get to you.
The two soon made their way to dinner with the Sashes, and upon wrapping up the evening, were riding home with the Luigi when suddenly True demanded to be taken to nearby intersection. It was around 11 when they arrived, and True, without saying a damn thing to either Armstrong or Luigi, hopped out of the car and ran down the street for a few minutes. When he came back, he told the two men that he had gone to check up on some friends to see if they were home, but sadly they weren't. After that, Armstrong was dropped off at home and True was taken back to his hotel he dismissed where he dismissed Luigi for the night. A few days would pass, and on Friday, March 3rd, True's family, who hadn't heard from True in weeks, reached out to Scotland Yard to warn them about Ronald, who had gone crazy and was running around London with a loaded gun. The police told the concerned family that since he hadn't actually broken any laws, they couldn't really do anything, but as an alternative, they gave the family contact information for a retired officer, ex-Inspector Stockley, who, after leaving the force, had become a private detective, and within hours, they hired him to find Ronald True.
That's no different than what would happen now. That's just literally the same thing, which is kind of
Yeah.
funny.
I also want to point out that it's True's wife, his mom, and his aunt, all three women. So again,
Yeah.
nobody's listening to women.
He also has kids, correct? I think he has two.
He is one.
Just one.
Ronald
Okay.
F. True.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
The F is
Ronald
for
F. True.
fucking. Yeah.
Mhm. Just like John F. Kennedy.
That was good. That was really fucking good. Oh my god. Honestly, I don't think he needed all that back surgery from the war. I think I know what he needed it from.
Oh, yeah, right.
Anyhow, the weight of America. Anyways, by that same evening, True, Armstrong, and the Sashes were dining together at the high-end London restaurant. It was here that True proceeded to ramble to the Sashes nearly identical stories to the ones he had told to Mrs. Wilson a few weeks earlier. But unlike when the actual Ronald True was nearby,
Mhm.
this time he started pointing out random people in the restaurant, patrons like Jaden, Jackie, Ave, Lucas, Yellow Bear, Tim, Ian, Rochelle, Dwayne, aka Snatchedbot, Marissa, who just joined, welcome. Max, Morgan, Dragonpaw from the Starblood Chronicles podcast, Miller's Monsters, Alyssa, Bree, Gavin, the leader of the chicken cult, James, Michael Extreme, Kristen from the Paranorm Girl podcast, and maybe most diabolically of all, member of our sexiest producer tier, Copy Kitty. Absolute slander, if you ask me. This is one of the most offensive things True's done.
Yeah, right every time. Thank you for all of you being our patrons.
Yes. Well, after True mumbled through and made claims about these random, incredible people who are all members of the Black Cat Report Patreon, he pointed out two other people in particular, neither of which, by the way, looked anything like him. The first, some random dancer on stage who he said owed him £5,000 due to forged checks and random bills made in his name. As for the other man, True claimed he was armed, completely insane, and he was most anxious to settle the score with him. But unfortunately, every time True attempted to set up an appointment to kill this other man, the man was always busy. However, this Sunday, True was finally going to kill him. In fact, he was so confident about this that he told the Sashas to check the newspapers Monday morning for headlines about the murder. After that, he flipped over the menu and proceeded to draw out the floor plans to the other Ronald True's basement apartment.
Whoa.
Poke, poke, nudge, nudge, hint,
Yeah.
hint.
He's just projecting right now.
So, un poquito. Well,
Yeah.
dismissing True's plan, timeline, and strategy to kill someone, Mr. Sash would later say that he just assumed True had gone more crazy since the last time he had really seen him in 1917, but he was harmless.
So crazy. I mean, literally, the harmless is the word of the day. I think harmless.
Fuck!
Yeah, he's projecting
True.
though. Yeah. I can't believe that. I mean, I can't believe that they're just like, oh, he's harmless, whatever. But he's projecting these things onto the other people. He's projecting the person stealing his money, which is literally just him stealing money from the original Ronald True. He's projecting his violent side, like his criminal side, he's projecting onto that one person. Then he's projecting his violent side over to the other person. So he's kind of, we want to talk about it, the idea, he's schizophrenic and he's just projecting these people that they are the archetypes that are in his brain of himself.
Yeah. If you listen to the not that I'm like trying to promote episode 2 constantly in episode 3, but I really tried to hammer that home in episode 2 with when I was saying like it was around the area where I was talking about him starting to become like a kleptomaniac and shoplifting.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He is starting to combat the world as he's turning like inwards. His expectations of his self and his grandiose ideas and stuff like that, like he's coming to terms with these things, and it's like eating him alive, which is really intense in terms of like his overall schizophrenia and how it's coming to be displayed.
Mm-hmm.
He's projecting an honest truth of himself, like you were saying, into the world, because the only way he can acknowledge it is if it's not him. But he's finally being forced to acknowledge it, which is part of the absolute deterioration of him. It's very. This is why I had that long, kind of philosophical like rant at the end of the last episode was because like these topics and how it gets covered. It's not just and then he went here and he did this and he was fucking crazy and started killing people. Fuck that guy. It's like, no, you're very close to the deterioration in this man's life, and it begs questions. But
it's sad, the deterioration of him.
It's very sad.
But the moments are funny. Like
there's some funny
that's
shit.
The funny part. Yeah, the like, moments of him
there's
of
some
his
funny
like
shit.
The coincidences first off that happen are just freaking funny, and just what he does. But the mental state of him is not funny. That is sad because he is deteriorating right throughout this whole story that you're telling. He's just
yeah. And this is why it was all heavy at the end of episode 2, where I was just kind of like, I'd had to face a lot of things, like questioning what's okay to joke about, what's not okay, because there's some funny shit here, and he's a douche, but also you can see him going crazy. And I'm leaving, obviously, a 300 and something page book of court documents and stuff. In total for all these episodes, it's going to be 35 pages of scripts. I'm leaving a lot out, but yeah, man. Anywho,
were the cliff notes.
Cliff notes, yeah. Well, dinner ended, and the two pairs separated for the evening, and True, yet again, ordered Luigi to stop at the same random intersection where, at 11 o'clock, he jumped out and came back a few minutes later, telling Armstrong and Luigi that, sadly, his friends just weren't home. That Saturday, the Sashas and True yet again met up. Again, the amount of enabling and shit that's happening here is it is insane. Ronald True is closer to sanity compared to everyone else. Well, they again met up, but this time it was for lunch and without Armstrong. I left some cliff notes for myself here. I didn't want to write it out forever because it's a lot of just kind of dinners and updates and shit leading up to shit. If you can't tell by now, the reason why I'm emphasizing specific dates leading up is because we're getting close to the climax. Well,
we're almost there.
Basically, the Sashas and True, they went out for lunch without Armstrong, and they went to this tea house, right? At this tea house, there was some random ass fucking guy, like 2 tables over, probably just jolly as fucking hell, just sipping his tea, being like, "Oh, it's so great to be British today," and just like sipping fucking tea,
having a scone,
having a scone. And he's, "I've never been to a gay bathhouse." I'm just like,
was that was the actual that was that guy's grandparents.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
I will most definitely not see him tonight at 7:30 p.m. or 8 o'clock if his wife takes forever to fall asleep. But anyway. God damn, that title's incredible. I hope to write that great someday. But I really mean it. I've read it 1,000 times. It's so good. It gets better every time. Like fine wine that never runs out,
He's in the tea house, right?
Yeah, so he's in the tea house, and he's sitting there, and he gets back into the Ronald True hunting Ronald True mode, and he starts looking around.
His true form.
And I'm not about to shout out more patrons, but I hope you all caught that and weren't asleep at that point in the episode. But he looks over, and there's some random motherfucker just like sipping tea, like, "La-da-da, la-da-da-da-da. I think I'll go for a walk with my new labradoodle later. La-da-da." And Ronald True like leans into the Sashas, and he's like, "See that guy over there? Do you see that son of a fucking bitch? That's my arch nemesis. I fucking hate him. I'm going to kill that man."
Ooh.
And the Sashas are sitting there like, "Okay." okay, is this... We're Americans. We don't really understand tea culture. Y'all know what we did last time you shipped some over.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what they mean when they say spilling tea? Is this what that's... No, just fucking listen. I'm going to... Excuse me, sir. A waiter walks up at this very fancy tea house. He says, "The phone is ready for you." Now, here's the deal. Ronald True told the staff that at a certain time they should come interrupt their conversation and tell him the phone is ready. He basically said, "I need to make a call at 1:30. Please let me know when it's 1:30 and get me and have your line open." And they were like, "Yes, sir. Anything you want, sir." So Ronald True stood up and he's like, "Oh, I have an important call that I must take. Excuse me." And he walked away. Whole time, guys in the background, "Yes, this scone is delightful. Never been to a gay bathhouse. No, no, no. Huh, maybe this scone has. Maybe this tea has, but not me. LiveSteven.com. So that's gonna be a bitch to adjust that audio so it doesn't kill people's ears later. But
Yeah, I'd say so.
God damn. I need like 8 microphones for different frequencies of voices.
Mm.
But yeah, so Ronald True gets up and he's like, "I have to take an important call," and just leaves. And the Sashas are just like, "Well, I guess, when in Rome or when in Britain, do as the Brits do." What are we doing here, right? Why is
Yeah.
this like the
Can we
third day
leave?
in a row we're hanging out with him?
Yeah.
"Yeah, he's an old war buddy from the States." "Yeah, I know, but you told me you didn't like him." "Yeah, he's the only one we know." Fuck. So
That's very
Ronald True,
powerful in another country.
is,
He's the
honestly.
only person
Yeah.
we know. So we
And
gotta
he's
deal with this
technically a
crazy stuff.
local.
That's true. Yeah, show
Um,
us cool places.
so anyways, Ronald True comes back. Again, da-da-da, the guy's in the fucking background, and he's like, "Yeah, so I ran into him in the parking lot, and we had a real how do you do." I had to basically summarize a long thing. He told them that he had to beat that dude's ass because he had been abusing his wife, Olive. Harken back.
Yeah.
Had been abusing his wife, Olive. And they got it worked out, and everything's fair and square. The phone call actually happened to be from Olive. So
So
it's
do
like,
the
he was like,
Sashas?
"Olive, are you doing okay, sweetheart?" And she said, "He's been so mean to me. Oh, I'm so glad you found the real Ronald True. I'll be there for you, baby." "Yes, thank you so..." "Wait, I think I see him in the parking lot. I'll be back, my sweetie." And then he went out. They had a how do you do. They beat each other's ass. He showed him who's fucking boss. Said, "Oh, that was absolutely wild, but I'm glad I got that result." Whole time, "La da da, can I get another scone?" The
Sitting there.
dude was still in the view of the Sashas.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
They're like,
pointing this out because of the literal obvious fucking insanity that is taking place in front of them. Like,
yeah.
they could have maybe passed it off as, "Oh, he's a little bit kooky. Oh, well, maybe he does have some issues. We don't know what the fuck's going on, da 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 da." They could have passed it off in so many ways. But he just came back and just bold-faced, directly, obviously, lied to them. Everybody knew. And whatever. Whatever, to the point.
don't.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please.
No. These guys, the Sashas, know him enough to go when they visit him, they see him, but they don't. Do they know that his wife is not?
They
named
ran
Olive?
into each other. It was a total random. They ran into each other on the street. And in terms of Olive, he wasn't saying his wife was named Olive.
Oh,
He was getting involved in the affairs of a man who was sitting right over there and also imitating him.
the
The
who was
other
beating
Ronald
his wife.
True,
Yeah,
who was beating his
abusing
wife, named Olive.
Okay.
Again, think
Now
about
I
what
get
the great point that you made around projecting.
Yep.
Right. You always got that prophecy Joey
Sometimes.
Lee. But most of the
That's
time.
why they call me Prophet Lee.
And there's a digital record of it. Most of the time you do.
Yeah.
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 So you can't say sometimes, motherfucker. It's like 90%. But yeah, so on top of that, he proceeded to go on about, more ideas and more talk and more planning for killing on Sunday. This is Saturday. Well, after which, and I swear to God, right after all of this, True crafted an elaborate story and convinced Sasha's wife to cash the check he had stolen from Armstrong's mom.
How?
Well, it seems as though the banks are closed today as it's Saturday. You're going to have to cash this over at a regular grocery store. And, it's just, she was going to change the name on it, but she's out of town and da 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 da. And you can work as a missus and you've met Armstrong. Why would you be worried about that? We're best friends. I would never do something like that. Like, he, on top of obviously gaslighting them, actively convinced her to cash this check, which I think it was like a 7 pound check, which with the 5 pounds from earlier that was 300 and something dollars, 7 pounds it's gonna be like 800 or 900 something. This is a
Yeah, it's
lot
a
of
good bit.
fucking
Yeah.
money that's being cashed,
Especially
right?
especially in economically like war torn, war deprived Britain at this time,
100%.
right after the war.
110%. Yeah.
He
So
is a sketch comedian. Like
oh,
nowadays, he would be like the
he
best
always
sketch
says yes
comedian
and.
ever. Yeah, yes, and
Yeah,
everything.
always.
Yeah, to go along with his
Yes,
Instagram.
and I live in whatever new world with this dialogue is
Yeah.
setting up.
Mhm.
Well, so yeah, that's what happened at that little tea break. Now, that night, they all met up for dinner again, this time with Armstrong, and afterwards, the True Crew, as I'll call them,
Mhm.
stopped at 11 p.m. at the same intersection. True ran off, came back, and the night ended without anyone asking a single fucking question. The next day, Sunday, the
The
day he
Sabbath.
said he's going to murder somebody, Luigi drove Ronald and Armstrong out of town into a bungalow owned by Armstrong's family. The two men then proceeded to basically just kind of fuck around and spend the day goofing off while they were practicing shooting cans until it finally got to be dark outside. At which point, Luigi drove them back to London, where, upon arriving, Ronald ordered Luigi to head to the same intersection as all the previous nights.
Mhm.
But this time, they were late.
Mm.
You see, every evening that Ronald had been sneaking off to, quote, check on friends, he had actually. Reread again. Sorry, hold on 1 second.
Earpiece bothering you?
You see, every evening that Ronald had been sneaking off to check on friends, he had actually been peering down the street, looking to the doorway of apartment 13A to see if the lamp hanging above the entrance was still lit. It was a subtle but important signal for someone of Olive's profession.
Mm.
It was one that she used to communicate with nearby friends. If the lamp was lit, she was still out. If it was off, she had made it home safe. But on the night of Sunday, March 5th, the darkness of her doorway became a screaming invitation for the obsessions of a madman. It was somewhere between 11 and midnight when Ronald saw the lamplight was out. In response, he quickly made his way back to Luigi and Armstrong, told them his friends weren't home, and they drove Armstrong back to his house. After dropping him off, True ordered Luigi to head back to the same intersection immediately, but this time, when they arrived, he directed Luigi straight to Olive Young's apartment complex, where he had him stop at the gated entranceway of apartment 13A. True stepped out of the car and dismissed Luigi for the night, telling him to come back in the morning, picking up. Telling him to come back in the morning and pick him up at 11 a.m. on nearby Finborough Road. Now, I feel it's important to note here, same as they noted it in the book, that Olive Young, being of the profession she was, didn't make a habit of raising an alarm or calling the police in the middle of the night, which may help to explain why, when she opened up her door and saw the man who had been stalking and harassing her relentlessly, she chose to simply let him in. Still lying together in the bed, Ronald seemed to have woken up first. It was early, 7 or 8 a.m., and so Ronald quietly and carefully got up and made his way to the front door, where he helped himself to her morning paper. He then made his way to her kitchen, where he read through the day's news as he prepared tea for Olive, still resting deep in slumber. Silently, he circled back to Olive's bedroom before carefully and sweetly waking her up. She smiled as she leaned on her side and took a sip of tea. He then bashed her head in with a rolling pin, causing blood to instantly begin gurgling from the side of her skull as he grabbed her by the mouth and forced a kitchen towel down her throat until it reached her larynx. Still not enough for him, he ripped the girdle from her gown and wrapped it tightly around her neck, knotting it with his fist as he grabbed the heavy rolling pin, lifting it high above his head before bringing it down again and again and again until he crumbled her skull with 4 more blows. The room was soaked in Olive's blood and skull fragments as Ronald dragged her body into the attached bathroom and left it on the floor. It would still be another hour or so before Olive's assistant, Emily Steele, would arrive to make Olive's breakfast and clean up her house. And Joey, as we all know, no great murder story is complete without a great escape. And of course, Ronald True, the man, the myth, the mastermind, was truly no exception. After finishing his tea and crumpets with a quickness, Ronald rifled through Olive's purse and belongings, grabbing any cash and jewelry he could find. Then, with the cunning of a 12-year-old sneaking out of summer camp at night, he took pillows and lined them up in bed under the covers to make it look like Olive was still sleeping. Keep in mind, the bedroom and his clothes are still completely covered in blood.
Covered in blood.
Well, shortly after completing his David Blaine-like hide the murder victim illusion, Emily Steele arrived at Olive's. Emily Steele arrived at Olive's. Walking in, Emily immediately noticed a man's coat in the entranceway, but she just ignores it because, frankly, there's always some random man's
someone
coat
left it here.
in the house.
Someone left it here. Yeah.
It's not unusual for a high-end escort to have a man's coat. You know what I'm saying? Like she knows, and she's like, oh,
yeah.
Gotta be quiet. Can't
wake
interfere with the master's business. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Basically, assuming Olive is still busy with work, Emily proceeds to very quietly make herself breakfast and then eventually gets started tidying up the house. Just a quick little meal, some toast, some this or that. It wouldn't be until around 9:30, a full half an hour after Emily arrived, that True pops out of the bedroom. And before she could say a word, he told her to leave Olive alone for a little while, as they had had quite a long night, quite a long, rambunctious night, and that she was still sleeping. You know what I mean? Right? You know what I mean? We did the deed. We did the dirty. We poked the polar bear. Yes, I'm fascinating. Anyways, I just crash landed from heaven and boy, are my legs tired. Could you help me with my coat?
God.
I made up most of that quote. But anyways,
That makes sense.
Emily did.
Most.
And as she helped Ronald put on his coat, she not only saw the blood he still had all over him, but also discovered Olive's jewelry in one of his coat pockets.
Mhm.
Upon her pulling it out, Ronald quickly snatched it up and assured her he had just brought this back. That I just got this in Paris when I was out of the country for the weekend. Basically, he just said he just bought this random women's jewelry when he traveled out of the country. Yeah, how weird of a fucking situation this is for somebody who's that like Emily is so goddamn close to Olive. The amount of times that I'm sure Emily had to put away Olive's jewelry.
Yeah, she knows what she has. Yeah, she knows
exactly, and he's covered in blood.
Mm-hmm. No, this
like
is
this
just,
is
this is
very
just jelly.
intense
This
situation.
is jelly. I had a jelly accident.
Let me tell you, real raspberry. No, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a very tense situation for Emily. She's aware of everything that's happening. Well, he said his goodbyes, and she proceeded to watch Ronald hail a cab down the street.
Making sure he's
Within
leaving for sure.
minutes, yes.
Yeah.
Emily Steele would discover Olive's lifeless body lying on the floor of the bathroom, and she immediately phoned the police.
Not Olive. Come on.
Yeah. Emily got some serious fucking street smarts in that situation. I'm just giving her serious props. But, well, here's the deal. True, now on the run, takes the taxi to a nearby post office where he calls the garage Luigi works at and tells him there had to be a change of plans and that he should go pick up Armstrong and meet him at the Strand Corner house. It's irrelevant what the fuck that house is, where the location is, just that's where it happened. Next, he hopped back into the taxi and directed the driver to a nearby men's outfitter store, where, upon arriving, he again told the driver to wait out front. Now, having been an irregular regular at this outfitter store, True made a beeline to an unsuspecting assistant he had met there before. Listen, man, I'm in a tight situation. I'm in a tight spot. I need your help. I need a hat. Now,
that'll do it.
I
That'll
swear to God,
that'll stop people from looking at the blood all over him.
y'all thought I was just bringing up hats for no reason.
Yeah, that's what's gonna stop it, and that's also his disguise.
Thing he does for his disguise is go try to get a hat.
I don't know if you've ever watched those.
They bring up hats.
I don't know if you ever watched those spy movies, but a good baseball cap will hide your identity from literally everybody.
10 times out of 9 works every time.
Yep.
But I do just picture him in the mirror, grinning. Ronald, you are an evil genius. No one, and I mean a no one, would suspect Ronald True of wearing a hat. Like, he just boom, you know?
Yeah.
And he was kind of right. Damn it, Ronald. Well, shocked, but stuck at work, the assistant helped True pick out a hat, after which True proceeded to unbutton his overcoat, revealing to the now horrified assistant that he's covered in fresh blood stains. Right?
Yeah.
The guy's like, what the fuck?
He's like, they don't pay me
And
enough
then
for
he
this.
stops looking at the hat and he looks down. Oh God, there's blood too.
Yeah.
Like just shock.
Sir, are you bleeding?
Ronald's response, and I swear to fucking God, I'm quoting. Oh, those? Yeah. I just had a flying accident. Anyways, I'm gonna need a new suit ASAP.
That tracks. That tracks, though.
Honest.
If the guy knew him, though, he's just like,
Yeah.
it tracks.
Oh yeah. Why didn't I assume?
Did you hit like 6 birds in the sky with your chest? Is that like you're not even hobbling as you're walking in here, you know? Like, come on. But like the guy's probably just like, they don't pay me enough for this. You know, like he says, I don't get paid
Not
enough.
at
Okay,
all.
I'll get you a new suit. Yeah. I'll just get you a new suit. It's
Yeah.
fine.
So anyways, the needs a new suit ASAP. Meanwhile, during all of this little hat and then him saying that he needs a new suit, police from Scotland Yard had already arrived at Olive's flat within a half an hour of True leaving. That means 10 a.m. ish. They had already made their way there. The cause of death was obvious. The murder weapon was just lying there, while a broken teacup with spilled tea was by the same side of the bed where a bloody body streak started the path straight to Olive's body, lying in the bathroom. This was open and shut case. You know, like it was just obviously we know what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
You
Obviously she was making cookies and she fell in the fell on her head a few times.
After the detectives swiftly and promptly and with the most prejudice investigated the spilled tea, they realized there was a dead body on the scene.
Yeah. This is obviously the Pillsbury Doughboy's fault.
God damn it. It was probably an American.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he was in America, I guess.
Did you hear about those sausages? No, but point is, a coroner soon measured Olive's body temp and, after comparing it to the temperature in the room, quickly determined the approximate time of Olive's murder. This dude was really good. Hopped on in there and was like, boom, boom, boom. It's within 15 minutes of this fucking happening, right? And I can't stress to you enough, any of y'all out there, how fucking fast this team worked. It took almost no time at all for the inspector, detective, and doctor to completely map out the timeline of events, noting the 5 head wounds and the strangulation marks from the cord that was on her dressing gown, to the fact that all of the doors and windows were locked, leading them to quickly surmise that the killer was only let in by Olive. And to top it all off, while taking Emily Steele's testimony, one of the officers found Ronald True's business card left on the goddamn table.
That was purpose.
That
was purposeful.
I can't predict anything with him. You might be right, but I don't know which one of him did it on purpose.
Yeah.
But
the one reading the paper.
Back to the suit store, True proceeds to try on nearly everything they have in stock before finally settling on a fancy lounge suit, which he tells the assistant he'll be leaving in after checking out. So, naturally, the assistant starts wrapping up the old, bloody suit for Ronald, and in the process of clearing out its pockets, the assistant discovers a small jewel case. Ronald grabs it and says, I had just picked these up in France, actually. He gave a quick RT out and hopped back into the waiting cab, which took him next to a nearby barbershop where, after discharging the cab, Ronald ran inside to get a shave and a brush. By this point, police had already arrived back at the station, and within probably less time than the beard trim, were already getting an earful from ex-Inspector Stockley as he was delivering them a good old-fashioned "I told you so." He then proceeded to tell the officers everything he had learned about True so far, including the fact that True was carrying a loaded gun. Well, after assessing the scene of Olive's murder, almost all of the Scotland Yard's investigators' initial work was done for them. They basically just had to copy down Stockley's notes. Like, that was it. They went there, addressed the scene in like 2 minutes, came back, and were just like, wait, is that an A or a B? Oh, they just like copied it down like last night's homework off of a friend's sheet, you know? Well, back at the barber shop, and I'm doing my best here to try to show you a play-by-play with these timelines. This is how fast it's going down. Back at the fucking barber shop, True finishes up and hands the bag with the bloodstained suit to the barber and says, "You mind holding this for a little while? I'll be back for it later." Those are quotes. He then dips out and makes his way to a nearby pawn shop where he sold off Olive's jewelry before scurrying over to the rendezvous point with Armstrong and Luigi, both of which made note that they nearly had a heart attack upon seeing Ronald True in a hat. With the perfect disguise now complete, Ronald has Luigi drive them outside of London to a place called Crydon to see some internal combustion engines they were interested in, basically.
Okay.
Basically, they went to a trade show for gas engine nerds. That's where they went.
Dude, he's doing his best Grand Theft Auto. He literally changed his hat. He committed the crime. He went away real quickly. The police arrived there and they're now like sketching him. They have the look of it. He's got like 3 or 4 stars right now. And he just does a shave, gets a new hat, gets new clothes, and then he just leaves town. He's waiting for the blinking stars to go away.
He might be crazy enough at this point that he's actually seeing the stars. Oh shit, I got 4 stars.
Yeah, I got 4 stars.
I get one more, the tanks are gonna come.
Yeah.
What?
And maybe the planes.
Maybe. I've never tried a helicopter.
And then he freaking gets. It seemed better because then he gets a plane and he flies away and he's got the and crashes, which just happens in Grand Theft Auto. But
God damn it.
Yep.
Our next game night, Joey, we're playing Grand Theft Auto. We'll throw it up on Twitch.
Yep.
But like I'm honestly doing Joey, you know how much time I spent obsessing over the timeline of these events. This was a mother pooper. All right. To time it out. But this is how quick shit's happening. Ronald True went and got a hat, which I imagine was a big deal for him and probably involved a lot of crying. He went and got a hat, immediately got a suit, and then, went to go get his beard trimmed and like brushed and shit like that, basically to get slightly done up.
Gotta look good. Yeah.
By the time he had gotten a hat and a suit, the investigator, the detective, the doctor were done at the murder scene. They were done. They were already across town back at fucking Scotland Yard and had already come in contact with Stockley, who was like, "Oh, that's Ronald True. Let me tell you about him," and was giving them all the information. That's how fucking quick this happened. This is like an hour and a half. They were like, "Oh, that, yeah." Like, this is like
moving fast.
Fucking easy bake oven of CSI, right?
Yeah, which is weird for I mean, I guess Scotland Yard is notoriously pretty decent about researching
I
stuff.
imagine this helped with their reputation.
It did help with their reputation,
Jesus.
and it helped that the PI was also there that had already been researching into it, but they had already gotten. I mean, okay, let me put it. I'm gonna say
So
they
many
did a great
things.
job getting this, but
Yes.
they literally had a smoking gun with his business card that was left there on the table, and they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, he just gave us his name, no big deal. But it is weird that it's TREW.
It was on. Wait a second. Just beating the shit out of the good doppelganger and Murray.
I was never there. I was never there.
I was
Help
with my
me.
wife in church. Yeah, right, you piece of shit. We heard
Yeah.
about what you do. And there's just like a line of people and bookies in the background
Waiting
rolling
to
up their
beat 'em up.
sleeves, getting ready to
Yeah.
beat them up too. Let us at him next, yeah. You
Yeah,
know?
we loved Olive, like damn.
Yeah,
He's
it's
like, I got away with
Bruh.
it.
And I would have gotten away with it too. If it hadn't been for the two true. But
Mhm.
this is fucking insane. Like, I'm sorry. I've never seen some shit just degrade so fucking fast. And Ronald True had so much time to plan. He had so much fucking time to plan. So basically, they went to a trade show for gas engine nerds. By the time they got to Crydon, it was 4 p.m. And True immediately bought a newspaper, the headlines of which read, "Murder of Olive Young." It had only been 6.5 hours since Ronald True left Olive Young's house. That's
Damn.
it.
Some quick
This is
recording.
123 years, or no, sorry, this is 103 years ago. Yeah, this is 103 years ago. That's how fucking quick the news travel.
Yeah, that's faster sometimes than a news article will be out now, which is
Bruh.
crazy.
And again, pointing out the status when I earlier on when I said that she was like high end, high class, like very in demand, all in the sort like this. She was a known figure, right?
Yeah.
This made news.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, upon seeing the headlines, Ronald tossed the newspaper into the car and said, "Ugh, nothing of interest." That's a direct quote.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense with his character right now.
Well, within a few hours, Luigi had taken them back to London for dinner, after which he chauffeured Ronald and Armstrong to the Hammersmith Palace of Varieties to catch a 9 p.m. show. Once they arrived, Luigi was relieved and told to come back when it was finished. The two men went inside, and before they were even able to settle into their seats, another audience member traded them for better private seating.
Nice.
Meanwhile, Luigi was arriving back at his employer's garage, where as soon as he pulled up, he was met by investigators from Scotland Yard. Now, Luigi, who I imagine had yet to be paid for anything,
Yep.
wasted no time telling the investigators everything in excruciating detail. Long of the short of it, before the show at Hammersmith was even through, police walked into the private box and arrested Ronald True. Not a single performer or audience member even noticed.
Damn. What a quiet takedown.
Yes. Yeah.
Damn,
They had enough information about True with the loaded gun. They were worried about going in there like this is a madman in a theater with a loaded gun. Like these aren't American cops. They actually think about these things, and they were trying to figure out. They had enough information by the time they went in. They knew the seats had been fucking traded, and they could arrest him
Damn.
quietly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
they're not going to interrupt the show.
Yeah.
Also, for any Clash fans out there, that Hammersmith is the Hammersmith from White Man and Hammersmith, a very famous song by the Clash, which I'm not a fan of, but I did notice the name and I looked it up. It doesn't and no longer exists, but it's a very historical venue. It's like
Mhm.
even older than say like the Fillmore or some shit like that. Like it's like a very,
Yeah.
boom.
Damn.
Well,
That's cool. That's good that they got him so
oh,
quickly and with so
boom.
easy. Mhm.
Bro, it was basically like 13 hours.
Yeah, that's
That's
very
about how
quick
long
in a
it
murder.
took.
Yeah.
And that includes Ronald True leaving town, coming.
Yeah.
Like, dude, just this shit moved so fast.
Mhm.
Well, by May, True was on trial. His lawyer had a very difficult path in front of him because his lawyer was pleading insanity. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of British law. And Joey's just like, thank you, God.
Thank
Of
you. Yep.
British
I think
law.
I speak for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil.
Yep.
Of British law around insanity defenses, but I've been like, edging us towards it this entire time about how this case kind of changed the trajectory of law for an entire country. Right? That's a
Mhm.
pretty big deal, right?
Yep.
Well, the thing is that at the time of Ronald True first, um, going up on the insanity defense, right? British law had a very intense philosophical system that had hardly been pushed or checked when it came to insanity. And what all the white wigs and philosophers in British law were basically getting at, because again, it was mostly theoretical in their
Mhm.
minds, right? Was that even if someone's insane, that doesn't mean that A, they weren't in control at the time they killed someone,
Mhm.
and B, that they didn't know right from wrong. And so you had to meet both of those qualifications in British law. You had to
Very hard to
completely
do.
detached from the concept of right and wrong, and you had to be completely detached from knowing what you were doing,
Mhm.
right?
That's hard to do.
So
Yep.
it's a very difficult defense to say. You can't
Mhm.
just say that somebody's crazy, so all the time they're crazy. That's not how it works. You have to
Mm.
say they were crazy and that it was in one of those brief windows where they were having a schizophrenic episode
Mhm.
that they committed this crime,
Yep.
right? Ronald True has a long, detailed history of this deterioration, these delusions, the development of fantasy, this mixture of fantasy and reality and fantasy, and just like it. This is why there's so much to this case. And here's the deal: the trial, which took place in front of a jury, only lasted 5 days before the jury sentenced him to death. Right. The guilty plea, or the insanity defense, did not work at first. Trial started on May 1st. True was found guilty by a jury and sentenced to death on May 5th. Really, boom.
Very
It's
short.
a short ass
I know
trial.
how short that
Right.
is because I was
Yes.
on a trial as a jury member, and it was a murder trial. And it's never it's very hard to be like, this is guilty, especially with the way that lawyers are justifying things that happened or justifying reasons, and you have to look at both sides. 4 days
Yeah.
is fucking quick for a murder trial.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And something funny, I've included a good 90% of the testimony through these past 3 episodes, but the farmer from New Zealand, when True was a kid, his aunt, I think the only person who I didn't explicitly mention, died. You know, the only person who I've mentioned in the story that probably didn't testify in this trial was his mom. I don't think his wife ever testified. I might be wrong. But like every name that I've mentioned in here has testified, including Armstrong, who, dear God, if you don't hate him by now, magically didn't remember or somehow didn't hear every incriminating thing that ever happened during any point of this entire goddamn scenario. Armstrong was like, I don't think I recall that situation where I was eating dinner at the same table as all of them and he was talking about the other Ronald True. Now, I don't think he ever told me about the other Ronald True. Armstrong literally, the way the records show, never heard about the other Ronald True, which I don't fucking believe
Gil.
at all
Gil.
in the least.
Gil.
He
Armstrong
earmuffed.
ain't no snitch. He ain't no
Armstrong
snitch.
ain't no
Snitch.
goddamn snitch.
If you are a criminal, get you a bro named Armstrong that's gonna just, I don't remember what happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? He actually went on to create one of the leading brands of earmuffs called Armstrong's Earmuffs. And it is now, he sold it to Patagonia.
Started
And
Live
now
Strong.
yeah, and he sold to Patagonia, and now he's he's passed away, but his family is doing really well.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But it's a trip. It's a trip. Goddamn.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and to be
everybody
fair,
testified.
was it gonna was his testimony going to help the insanity plea?
It
Because he would
100% made sure he didn't go to jail. That's what it did.
Yeah, but for sure, would that have helped the insanity plea? You know what I mean? Like, because he would have been like, no, he went
Yes.
crazy. So he kind of did,
Yes.
in a way, looking at it, he kind of screwed over his friend, but made sure he didn't go to jail. So, which is kind of like, he's not a good bro. He's not a snitch, but
It's a hard spot to be in.
no, I'm
but-
backpedaling. Now I'm backpedaling on his cool friendship. Fuck Armstrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking on both
Armstrong.
sides of it, he did not help
Fuck
anybody.
Armstrong.
Yeah.
This is an orgy of fuck them both.
Yep.
But yeah, so everybody fucking testified. That's where so much of this story and the breakdown and summary and stuff comes from. Well, anyways, fast forward a little bit. So True goes to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fucking cuckoo bananas in jail, including, where are the killers at? Where are the fellow killers? Killers over here. I'm almost literally quoting. At one point, he walked into a room in the common area and was like, all the killers over here, everybody. Hey, like, yes, that was him. And started a beef with this young kid, this young man. He was like 18, 19 years old, who was also in there for killing somebody, and who also the lawyer had pled insanity. Started a beef with him. It was a whole thing. I think he knocked out a few of this kid's teeth. It was some prison shit. Well, fast forward a tiny bit more. We're at May 25th. By this point, 3 separate psychologists had spent like a week, 2 weeks, whatever, with Ronald True. Meticulously documented him, his speech, his behavior, his history, his thoughts. Every fucking one of them said either A, yeah, he's fucking cuckoo bananas 24/7, or B, he's inconclusively cuckoo bananas 24/7, but he is 100% conclusively cuckoo bananas.
Yeah.
Like it was some strong medical practice kind of like BS where they were just like, I can't 100% say it, but I'll say 99.999% of the time. You know, like it was basically 3 individual doctors hired by the other side went against the people who hired him and were like, yeah, no, he's gone. He's gone, baby.
Yeah.
May 25th, appeal. It gets dismissed. June 8th, The Home Secretary, Edward Short, 2 T's, granted True a reprieve on the grounds of insanity, and True was moved to the Broadmoor High Security Psychiatric Hospital. This caused a fucking uproar across England. Why? Because that boy that True knocked the fucking teeth out of, who had also pled insanity and also had a record, but not as well documented, had been executed a few days before. And poor folk / folks that weren't direct heirs to barons were like, what the literal fuck?
Yeah.
What this double standard bullshit? It caused a massive uproar on a bureaucratic level for the Home Secretary, Edward Short. He had the fact is the boy had been charged like a month and a half earlier. It was his whole argument was like it was a timeline thing. He's like, I got this case. I looked at this case. I looked at the evidence. When I got Ronald True's, I saw that 3 psychiatrists all said he was cuckoo bananas.
Yeah.
And I decided that 2 out of 3, that's the majority, yada yada. This shit got to the fucking point that in England there were riots
Damn.
in the fucking country, and this Home Secretary, had to go in front of Parliament and make a case for granting Ronald True's
Damn.
reprieve
Damn.
and declaring him insane and letting him get off of the death sentence and just live the rest of his life in an insane asylum. But I will say, at least in British Whig world, almost everybody in fucking Parliament, upon hearing the case about why Edward Short came to that conclusion, when he had to testify in front of Parliament, which is like testifying in front of Congress, right? When he testified, everybody on all the different party lines were like, well, goddamn, that's a really good point. Yeah, we agree with you. It took this dude standing up and just being like, and this reason and that reason, and did you hear about the Argentinian palm readers? You know, like, like he got up there and they all backed the fuck down, and the law was changed to basically say, if you're pretty much 70%, 80%, 60% of the time, whatever, cuckoo bananas, and everybody knows that you're cuckoo bananas, you're not 100% responsible for your crime, but you're also not going to be allowed in the regular public, population. We need to kind of,
which makes sense.
spirit you away to another location. Well, irregardless, True spent the rest of his life in Broadmoor High Security Psychiatric Hospital, right? In this hospital, which, by the way, my friend, my really good friend M from England, she brought up Broadmoor when we were talking the other day, and she's like, "Oh, you don't want to be sent there." In terms of like, it is horribly notorious. It's the Alcatraz of psychiatric hospitals in England. It is the worst of the fucking worst of the worst. He wasn't necessarily let off, but I will point out a little fun fact. Ronald True, ever true to his goddamn self, was a regular participant and somewhat of an in-house talent when the hospital put on drama club events.
Makes fucking sense.
I just love to think of it. No, it's tap, tap, slide. How many times must I tell you people? Of course I'll be Jesus in the next play, but it's Charlie Brown. Then he needs Jesus.
He's like, wait, I can pretend to be other people?
It's gonna be really hard to pretend, but I'll do my best. You know me, I keep it true. Long of a short of it. At age 59, on January 8th, 1951, Ronald True dies of a heart attack at the Broadmoor Hospital Reports indicated that the only person to attend his funeral was his 76-year-old mother.
Mm.
And that's the end of the story.
Damn. That is sad.
Yup. Yeah. It's a real heavy. It's heavy.
And his mom, who kind of disowned him for a while, which, I mean, makes sense why she would do that for a little bit. She was still giving him money, but like she kind of was just like, let's take a break. She's like, let's take a break from each other for a bit. It seems like
It, in certain ways, I definitely focused on those aspects because the show's not about Ronald True's mother, but
yeah, for sure.
In many ways, she was the only one who ever consistently gave a fuck about him.
Yeah.
And cared for him and really tried for him. Other than, Frances, who put up with him for quite a bit of time and had her heart broken horribly. But his mother,
Poor Francis.
I guess the deal is his mother could have, especially at this time, could have very easily just disowned him, not given a fuck about him, denied him, abandoned him to the world, but she kept trying, and she was not happy about leaving him when he was a little kid, and she was forced to go to England and everything like that. So I think she sent him to other places with the honest intention of, I just want my son to find a place in the world.
Yeah, something that fits him, something that he can do.
Yeah, that it clicks, that it works. And it's really fun. It's just sad. It's just fucking sad. At the end of the day, it's just fucking sad.
Yeah. What really makes it interesting and great is that we got one of the greatest inventors out of this, though, because not only did Armstrong create earmuffs, he was the first to create noise canceling headphones with the earmuffs because he just wasn't paying attention. It's not his fault. He literally didn't hear anything. His headphones, his earmuffs were like prototypes. Yeah.
Crime canceling headphones that somehow magically blocked out all things that would, implicate you in a criminal activity. Say what? I couldn't hear you. My new automatic crime canceling headphones. You're right. You're 100% right.
Thank you, Armstrong.
This is for real. Thank you. But this is a fascinating, incredibly complicated story. Dear God, this is just layers upon layers. This might be one of the most complicated, stories, at least for me, that I've ever covered on the show in terms of implications, repercussions, buildups, the intricacies of like all of the different backgrounds and what happens. Excellent suggestion. I didn't say it up top. I have said it multiple times in the past 2 episodes for the series. Shout out Ian and Jaden. Thank you so much for recommending Ronald True to us. I know it was just kind of a random Wikipedia article, literally, that they came across, and they were like, dude, this would be fucking awesome. And I skimmed through it, and I was like, dude, this is hilarious. This is funny. Some guy who's like this crazy kind of like douchey looking D-bag crashes a plane multiple times, marries an actress, kills this random lady. Hell yeah, that'd be a fun case. And then I actually dove into it, and I was like, oh my God, this just keeps going. Like, it just fucking goes. And like, but yeah, seriously, it's recommendations like y'all's that keep us so fucking stoked about the content that we cover, that we make on this show, and that we love to deliver. So thank y'all. Apologies a million times over about how delayed a lot of these episodes have been, but yeah, we're not gonna half-ass it. Sorry. You're just gonna have to wait for quality sometimes. Like you can get the microwave ready meal, or you can get that slow cooked juicy shit. And
we've still been, me and Gil have still been kind of recovering from a lot of stuff, recovering
not at all.
No, not at all from random stuff that's happened to our town. So we're still getting into the groove again and doing episodes. So hopefully we'll,
It's true.
we'll be on track eventually. But next week, get your favorite snacks.
Is that the sound?
Get your favorite snacks because we're gonna go on a nice little road trip for a nice light. I always like to say it's light episodes, but that's to me that's light. It's light and fun. It's less intense research, I guess. So great job, Gil. You did wonderful. And everything was great. The twists and turns are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you all out there. Thank you to our Patreon listeners. Thank you, everybody. We did already mention you guys in our episode for being patrons at the bar. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. And be prepared for beer. I don't think this will be out by then, but be prepared for a Cup of Joey on Monday, the first Monday of the month. We will be doing a lot of stuff coming up this month. I might have a nice, interesting video surprise, funny enough, for you guys already coming up in the month of March. I'm hoping to be able to get that done. Gil's got a nice surprise right now with the chonker. And yeah, we will be getting a lot of stuff out to you in March. So thank you guys for joining us. And you know what? Gil, you got anything to say?
He's hanging out with Salem.
Perfect.
Let me think. Well, if you happen to be catching this from the unedited live stream, between here and early Saturday, I guess, definitely please head over to Beer, Booze, and Boogeyman. Join us for the live stream. It'll be fun. It's going to be haunted graveyard tales. Who the fuck doesn't love a good haunted graveyard tale? I don't know, but fuck them.
Yep.
So, yeah, we got a lot of shit coming up. Look, the easiest way to keep up with all the chaos, all the madness, and honestly, all the horribly planned and procrastinated last-minute content we will continue to produce for you, whether you know about it or not, is
I
to
like
follow
to say
us.
we're creative.
It's to follow us on Patreon under Black Cat Report. Super easy to find, and here's the deal. Reach out to us at any fucking point and say, hey, I just joined, and we're going to be like, hey, here is a year upgrade to a paid tier. We're just glad to have you here, fam. Because we're not doing it for the money. We're just doing it for the funny.
Love it.
We love you all.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.